For both the Ask Agritecture and the workshops, you can go to just agritecture.com and you'll find both. For Ask Agritecture, it's just agritecture.com/ask. And for the workshops, it's agritecture.com/workshop. For Agritecture Designer, we have that on a separate website. You'll still see that link too on agritecture.com, but it is design.agritecture.com. So just one note there. All right, so let's open it up to questions. I'm going to start with a couple pre-submitted questions, and we can do this as kind of just a round robin. So we got a couple questions on the effectiveness of urban and peri-urban agriculture in developing countries versus developed countries. So one in particular that said studies show that urban and peri-urban agriculture is most effective in more developed countries. And another one asking about the overall viability of developing countries. So it sounds like there's some questions there. Why don't we start, Jeffrey and Yara, if you guys want to give your thoughts on that. And
yeah. So, I think what's important to recognize is that, these agricultural systems, there's a technology spectrum, and, a lot of the controlled environment agricultural operations, such as greenhouses or high-tech greenhouses and vertical farms, do have high capital costs. And that may not be the best fit, for every city or every country. It really depends on, what is the market size and what is the cost of produce, for that local economy. So, in an urban environment such as New York City, Chicago, Baltimore, London, Dubai, there is existing infrastructure and demand to justify, the investment and the creation of these high-tech systems that can provide high-yielding quality product, for the people there. But in countries where, the demand is there, but the price isn't at a premium, you need to be mindful and conscious of, what is the best, technology approach in developing your farming operation. I spent 2 weeks in Kosovo for a project for a client, and, we interviewed 10 different farmers that were all using greenhouses for their operations, but these were high tunnel greenhouses based in soil fields. So they weren't using hydroponic growing, but they were still using a level of controlled environment to maximize, the growing period for their crop. And that's really what's key to, developing your business, is understanding, what level of technology makes the most sense for your customer, for the cost of production, so that you can create a margin that allows for, sustainable business to grow and expand. Yara, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the one thing I would add on is, to be fully transparent, the reality, I think, the situation when it comes to controlled environment agriculture is that, depending on the technology, the cost is a little bit higher right now. And, we do assume that cost of certain equipment like lighting will get more affordable with time. But it is important to note that there are different scales to farms that you can look at, right? There are different smaller scales and different markets that you can approach for it to be something that's a little bit more affordable. One example I would bring in is Sky Vegetables, which is a greenhouse that we helped operate for a couple of years, and we've worked with over the past 5 years, actually. But they're based in New York City, and it's a rooftop greenhouse, and it's a semi-automated greenhouse. But they did have a component to their business model, which was community focused. And so what we worked on and what we tried to develop was trying to sell enough premium product to offset the cost of, distributing the food in the community, which was an underserved community, just distributing it for free or for a subsidized price. So while, I think, I don't know about the impact of, urban ag in developed countries, if it's better or not, but per se, but within every model, you could sort of integrate something that's more accessible, I would say, to a wider community as well. It just needs to be part of your plan from day one.
Great points. Yeah, I think, one interesting thing we're seeing from Agritecture Designer is some of our users that are interested in greenhouses. We've heard that they're especially ones that are coming from maybe more developing countries. They're interested in basically going deeper into the light duty greenhouse. Now, so what we've done to make things a little bit simpler is obviously there's a whole range of options when it comes to structures and covering types for a greenhouse. We've broken those into kind of three categories: light duty, medium duty, and heavy duty. And then what we do kind of on the back end, the magic black box is based on some of the selections you make around your local climate. We have, or your location, we have historical climate data for that location. And so we make a selection, we make kind of an assumption there of what the best light duty option might be. But what we're hearing from our users is they want to have a little bit more power, and they want to learn a little bit more of, is it evaporative cooling? Is it natural ventilation? Those are topics we touch on in the commercial urban farming course. And so now it's about kind of pairing those options within Agritecture Designer. So that's something that we're excited to be working on. And it's just interesting because, within the indoor farming space, you see like these high-tech vertical farms get a lot of the media attention. My background's in digital marketing, so I see the search history on Google and things like that. You see 20 times the number of searches for vertical farms as you do for greenhouses. But the fact is that in a lot of situations, especially for new growers, it might make sense to start with a low cost, low technology controlled environment system like a lighter duty greenhouse. So I think certainly for some developing countries where there might be challenges related to infrastructure or energy loads or really high heat considerations or other, I guess, environmental considerations in general. Sometimes you can solve those through cheaper options. Okay, let's get into one other pre-selected one, and then I think we have a couple questions submitted from the audience. So I guess this is a good transition. So hot weather growing solutions, and how do you minimize operating expenses? How do you think about choosing your crops? A couple other, this is a long question, but let's keep it to that. So specifically within hot weather growing conditions, how can we think about what are some options for minimizing your operating expenses, and how should you think about crop selection in those conditions?
Yeah, I can start really quick with that. At least on the crop selection front, choosing your crops should be one of your first steps, I would say. I think the best strategy to go about that is to really assess your market that you want to approach and understand the demand there, and really invest that time and research there. And that should kind of give you a better idea as to what to grow. Typically when you're growing in hot weather, if you're going to grow in a completely controlled environment, the cost for cooling will definitely be high. So, given that the crops are probably your main source of revenue, if not your only source of revenue, you do want to keep in mind, potentially growing something that might be a little bit more premium, or for example, if there's, there are certain crops that are imported, and you think you could grow that same crop at the same price, if not a bit lower, for a better quality. That's also a really interesting strategy to kind of take on. So I would look out for certain crops like that. One example I would use is we work a lot in the GCC, in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And this is a really big issue there when it comes to the heat and making sure operational expenses are controlled. And I think a strategy that we see works is a lot of the lettuces and leafy greens are imported from places like the Netherlands or even the US, and they're sold for a pretty premium price. So, some strategies that we've gone with are just making sure we grow something of better quality and trying to price it in that same range, if not lower. And that usually does help with the operational model. I don't know if you wanted to add on to that, Jeffrey.
I think you covered it pretty well. I think, if you are in a climate that has more of a heat or a high temperature environment, making sure that you're choosing the right variety and cultivar of crops. So ones that are more heat tolerant, and really making sure that it's the right variety for your conditions that you're growing in. Understanding, what the temperature, the humidity, that vapor pressure deficit of those crops you're using, how that relates to your HVAC system, understanding, what temperature the root zone has to be in. These are types of questions that, require more of a plant scientist or agronomist that you need to work with to really hone in on how to, address what is the right crop and the right system given your climatic conditions. And that's something that, our lead agronomist, David Caesar, has been working on, with his time with us, and our systems engineer, Alberto Lopez, works on when we are working with our clients. So definitely a great question, definitely something you want to make sure that you properly address as you're considering, developing your farming business. I think to maybe add on, for anyone that is really considering, entering into, the ag tech space, the CEA space, beyond just these three initiatives that we've covered, we do update our blog frequently. I would say on a daily, if not weekly basis, of just the latest articles and information that's happening in the industry. In addition to that, we do link different research articles, different podcast interviews, really, a massive amount of resources for anyone to really, dive in to see, what's happening around the world. The articles we share are global, so it could be here in the US, in India, in the Philippines, Malaysia, the GCC. In addition to that, we do conduct events. Right now, all of our events are digital. So we post any events that are coming up that we're partaking or getting involved in on the events tab. And that Learn tab, so it covers the blog, it covers research articles, podcasts, really, an amazing amount of information for anyone that's looking to just understand what's happening in our industry to get involved. So, this is a great starting point just for you to do your own research and due diligence. And, we definitely want to make sure that anyone that is interested, that they do take that time themselves to put in the work to understand what they want to do. The more the more you understand about the industry, when you formulate those questions and have that problem that you're looking to answer, it helps us better advise and assist you in that development process. So, if you haven't gone through the Learn tab, by all means, please check it out. And if you haven't seen our digital conference series, we have about 40 plus different videos of interviews from, the leading ag tech companies, entrepreneurs, thought leaders in our space, covering a wide range of topics from rooftop farming to alternative proteins to different engineering considerations. So, another great resource to really dive into as you continue your journey in the urban and CEA space.
All right, guys, I want to thank everyone for joining. I hope this answered a number of your questions and just demonstrated the different avenues through which you can get in touch with us and the ways that we want to be accessible in your journey going forward. Please help us by sharing some of this information. We love this industry. We love meeting passionate entrepreneurs around the world. It's really what drives us. So please continue to share and continue to send us feedback on what you want to see. And if you have any questions going forward, we'd love to start activating Ask Agritecture, which we just launched the other week. So look forward to hearing some inquiries through that. Any last words, Jeffrey, Brianna, Yara?
Just want to thank everyone for their time, joining us, for this hour session. We really appreciate it. And if you have any questions related to our services, by all means, contact us through the website. And we hope that we can work with you all as soon as the time is ready.
Yeah, we look forward to working with you all.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.